I'm wondering to myself now, what's the appeal of those World War II action fairs? Actually, it seems pretty obvious, in films, in comic books, in video games. It's everywhere. World War II is still a very popular destination for these war fictions, for these simulations, these action vehicles. Why is that? Well, there's a very clear-cut and obvious and overt villain, which is still relevant today in many respects, unfortunately. I don't know if there's been a war since the Second World War wherein there's no controversy about placing one in the role of the victors of that war and it being a kind of triumphant action affair, right? Perhaps correctly so, really. Obviously, there are valid contentions to any war fiction. One doesn't want to glorify war too much. It's not fun and games. It's not an action film. It's certainly not a video game. It's not even clips shown off by the news in a, wow, look at that sort of way. It's just morbid, honestly. So when viewing war in a film in any context, one questions what it's there for. Is this propaganda, or is this an attempt to, maybe not deliberately, but does this kind of cheapen, and is this evidence, is this manifestation of a culture that's glorified war, a country which replaced, Western world which replaced Christianity with we won the war as its official religion? Whatever the case, gunning down Nazi soldiers in Western Europe became a very common aesthetic, and Umberto Lenzi visited this aesthetic at least 3 times prior to 1986's Bridge to Hell. Bridge to Hell, if his initial 4 World War II pictures, Desert Commandos, Legion of the Damned in the later 60s, and then The Biggest Battle and From Hell to Victory in the later 70s, if these 4 represented someone playing with their action figures, their toy soldiers and their miniature tanks and playing World War II, Bridge to Hell represents you and your friends running around the forest as kids playing war. One side is the Allies, one side is the Axis, and you just kind of, throw rocks and sticks at each other. I mean, Lenzi had like a bit of a, film budget. I guess they had some props left over from some more expensive production from some years before, and they went at it, and they must have had some fun. I guess they had some C4 and explosives apparently as well. I hope no one got hurt for this production. Certainly it's endearing, and if you were like a 12-year-old kid who really liked playing, like, I don't know, Call of Duty 2 or something, maybe you'd find something really cool in Bridge to Hell. You can imagine how like you and your friends could put something like that together. But aside from that, I think a film like Bridge to Hell is really only worthwhile as a novelty to observe how one tries to put together one of these, kind of garage World War II action movies with the resources not overly far removed from what you and your friends might get from a theatre production if you begged them, This is your local theatre company's World War II production, more or less, I think. And it's Umberto Lenzi's Bridge to Hell, a macaroni combat picture released in 1986, quite late for one of the titles of that particular bracket, it would seem. But intentionally or not, it drilled into me the ultimate appeal of those World War II movies. It's a very easy and kind of seemingly ethically free escapist environment to tell, good versus evil war stories. If action budgets, it can pretend it's telling history, and it's a very kind of triumphant nationalist, oh yeah, remember that, wasn't that, didn't we overcome the baddies there, oh yes, we can rest on our laurels forever, we were right, blah 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 blah. And yes, although the glorification of violence as a result led to a world where the states used these events to justify more violence against other nations to its citizens, or even upon its own citizens, in the name of preventing more violence, it's been an ugly affair all the same. The war was ended by detonating a couple of atomic bombs and then kind of irreparably ruining the world forever, more or less. We just, we introduced the doomsday button in 1945 to end World War II, which is horrible and horrifying, and something which we'll never be able to go back from. No more, ever. But all the same, the events of World War II are considered good fodder for these childish action films, nonetheless. It's easy to understand that they can be enjoyed in a certain context as novelties, if nothing else, really. Oh well, it is what it is, I suppose. That's Umberto Lenzi for you. Tune in next time for 1987's Wartime. He keeps at it. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Here we go, now.